Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling what I think is the most agonizing challenge for anyone in content. You know the feeling. You create this incredible work, traffic is surging, the social shares are they're skyrocketing. And then you walk into that budget meeting and the VP asks, so, what did 5 million page views actually do for our bottom line? It's such a painful question because, the honest answer is usually just a shrug, right? It's so easy to track activity. But connecting that activity, that beautiful blog post or that high-performing video, directly to cold, hard revenue, that's the real measure. Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to give you a complete 5-part content marketing measurement framework. We're trying to move past that shrug and build a clear, defensible line from every piece of content you create straight to your organization's financial success.
And that transition is, well, it's absolutely crucial, from just reporting on activity to real strategic analysis. In a world that is just drowning in data, if you're trying to track everything, you're effectively measuring nothing. We need precision. We have to measure what truly matters to the business revenue, efficiency, competitive position, not just what happens to be easy to track. This framework, it forces you to focus only on those metrics that actually move the revenue needle.
Which brings us right to step 1, foundation building. Before we even think about collecting data, we have to, clean house?
Absolutely. The audit phase is step 1, and it requires ruthless elimination. You have to review your existing metrics, and you have to eliminate anything that qualifies as a true vanity metric.
So things like simple page views, general likes, social shares.
Exactly. If they don't have a clear path to conversion, if they don't feed directly into a business outcome or a defined next step in the buyer journey, they're just noise. We need to stop rewarding ourselves for simple engagement and really start focusing on intent.
Okay, so once we swept away all that noise, we need a structure. You call this the 3-tier KPI hierarchy. Can you walk us through that?
Of course. This hierarchy makes sure we're tracking performance comprehensively. So Tier 1 is engagement KPIs. These are your basic consumption metrics, but they have to be highly qualified. We're looking at things like time on page, scroll depth, repeat visits, things that show real consumption, a real connection, not just a bounce. Then Tier 2, and this is probably the most critical, is conversion KPIs. This is where your audience starts showing actual intent. They're moving through the sales funnel. This includes things like content qualified leads, asset downloads, webinar registrations.
And then the final goal.
The final goal, Tier 3, revenue KPIs. So content influenced revenue, lifetime value, or maybe even sales cycle acceleration.
I want to pause on Tier 2 for a second. Conversion KPIs. We hear the term content qualified lead or CQL all the time. But if everyone in the company defines that differently, the whole framework just collapses, doesn't it?
It does. That's the core challenge, and it's why so many organizations suffer from what we call metric drift. You must create a standardized definition and a specific calculation method for every single KPI, especially the CQL. A CQL isn't just someone who signed up for your newsletter. It has to be someone who consumed a high-intent, gated asset directly related to a solution you offer.
Like downloading a pricing guide.
Exactly. A pricing comparison guide, an ROI calculator, a solution implementation template. You have to specify the action and the content type that qualifies them.
So we're not just defining a term. We are mandating the exact formula, the content they had to consume. That sounds like a massive rule book to maintain.
It is, but the payoff is consistency. And to keep it maintained, accountability is everything. You have to identify specific metric owners, assign individuals or departments who are responsible for the accuracy, the interpretation, and the optimization of each KPI.
Which prevents that messy situation where marketing and sales are arguing over who gets credit for a lead.
Precisely. Because they calculated it differently. We mandate regular quarterly review meetings for these metric definitions. Business goals change. Your KPIs have to adapt. Measurement integrity is not a set it and forget it thing. It needs constant maintenance.
That's a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
So now that we know what we want to measure, the next challenge is making sure the data underneath it all is actually clean, which moves us into step 2. Data collection setup. Fragmentation is the real enemy here, right?
It absolutely is. If your data lives in 5 different silos, you'll never trust the results. The fundamental starting point is establishing rigorous UTM parameter standards. You need consistent naming conventions across every campaign, every social post, every internal link. I know it's tedious, but it's the only way to reliably trace a user's journey back to a specific piece of content.
I can just hear a lot of content managers groaning right now.
Yeah.
But the second part, the content tagging taxonomy, that sounds even more demanding. You're saying categorize every single asset by 4 different dimensions. How do you get a busy team to prioritize that?
You do it because that rigor is the only way to get meaningful analysis. If you tag consistently, you stop saying, blog post X got 1,000 views, and you start understanding content on topic B in a video format for the consideration stage targeting audience C led to a 15% higher CQL rate.
Oh, so you can actually see the patterns. What are those 4 dimensions again?
Content type, so blog, video, guide, topic, funnel stage awareness, consideration, decision, and the specific audience segment it's for. This detailed taxonomy is what lets you optimize your entire portfolio, not just one-off assets.
And that gives us the quantitative backbone. But if we only look at numbers, we miss the human context, the why behind the click.
Precisely. That's why a mixed method approach is non-negotiable. You have to integrate qualitative data collection, set up on-page surveys, exit polls, heat maps, user session recordings. These tools tell you why people are leaving or what questions they still have after reading.
So a heat map might show that your call to action is just too far down the page.
Exactly. A heat map might show that 80% of users stop scrolling halfway down, and your most critical CTA is buried at the bottom. Quantitative data shows you the bounce rate. Qualitative data tells you how to fix it.
And all this rigorous planning needs to live somewhere, right?
It does. Everything should be organized in a formal measurement plan document. It's a living roadmap. It outlines every metric, why it matters, how it's collected, and, crucially, who is responsible for acting on the insights. And to keep it all clean, you mandate monthly data quality audits. Check for broken UTMs, check your integrations.
Catch those small issues before they become attribution disasters. Okay, that moves us to step 3, which is often the toughest part but also the most illuminating. Attribution model implementation. Here's where it gets really interesting. We need to move beyond saying content might have influenced a sale to actually proving it caused or significantly accelerated it. How do we even start?
Well, this really hinges on selecting the right attribution model. And that choice depends on your conversion volume and your typical sales cycle length. We always advise teams to steer away from the simplistic first touch or last touch models. They just ignore the nurturing role of content in the middle.
So what should we be using?
For most teams, we recommend either position-based models, which are often called U-shaped, or time decay models. They offer the better balance of insight and implementation complexity. The U-shaped model, for example, gives significant credit to the very first touch for discovery and the last touch before conversion for decision-making, but then it distributes the rest of the credit across all the interactions in between. It actually acknowledges the whole journey.
So if we're acknowledging the whole journey, we need to know what role each piece of content is supposed to play.
Exactly. You have to map your content touchpoints to your buyer stages. Document which content is for awareness, maybe those broad topic guides or infographics, and which assets are key to the decision phase, like case studies or competitor comparisons. An intro blog post and a technical guide have totally different jobs.
And then there's the attribution window, the look-back period. This seems simple, but getting it wrong can be catastrophic.
It is critical. If your window is too short, you completely miss the influence of all your early awareness stage content. You have to configure look-back periods that actually match your sales cycle. If you're in B2B with a complex sale, you might need 60, maybe even 180 days.
But for e-commerce, it could be much shorter.
Right. For B2C or e-commerce, it could be 7 to 30 days. It has to reflect reality.
And once we set all this complex logic up, we can't just assume it's working.
No, never. You have to constantly validate the attribution logic. Test your model with a dozen sample customer journeys. Trace them from first click to conversion and make sure the credit assignment makes sense. And schedule quarterly attribution reviews to adjust your windows or your model as things change.
Okay, so we've built the foundation, collected clean data, and assigned credit fairly. Step 4 is dashboard creation and automation. Turning all this data into something actionable. I've seen so many dashboards that are just walls of numbers. They cause instant data fatigue. How do we design something that actually drives decisions?
You start with the user. You have to conduct stakeholder interviews. And you don't ask what metrics they want. You ask what decisions they make and which metrics legitimately guide those choices. Understanding their operational needs is the only way to avoid that data overload.
So that leads to different dashboards for different people.
It has to. Role-specific dashboards are a necessity. An executive needs a strategic overview revenue contribution, cost per acquisition. A manager needs operational metrics to allocate budget. And a content creator needs tactical insights, which headlines or formats are converting best. Tailored views are all about relevance and utility.
We're not just serving one giant, intimidating table of numbers to everybody. And once those views are tailored, How do we shift the team from just compiling data to actually analyzing it?
Automation. That's your best friend here. Your investment in analytics only pays off if the team can focus on analysis, not compilation. Implement automated reporting. Nightly data refreshes, weekly email digests of KPIs, monthly executive summaries that just deliver insights automatically.
I'm really interested in the idea of the system telling me something's wrong instead of me having to dig for it. But are those anomaly alerts reliable? Don't you just get notification fatigue?
You mitigate that risk by calibrating the system carefully. You configure the alerts to only trigger when performance deviates significantly, say, a 20% swing from the norm. This helps you proactively catch both big problems and, just as important, big opportunities while they're still actionable. The system becomes your assistant. And finally, you have to create simple interpretation guides. Explain how to read and act on the dashboard. Don't assume everyone is an analyst.
Which brings us to the final and I think most critical step, executive communication. You can have perfect data, flawless attribution, but if you can't communicate it, the content team still fails.
Absolutely. You have to translate marketing jargon into business priorities. Executive time is finite, and their priorities are very clear. Revenue growth, cost efficiency, competitive position, sales acceleration.
So if I walk in talking about click-through rates,
The CFO here is marketing cost. But if you translate that same activity into reducing the average cost per content qualified lead or accelerating sales velocity in the funnel, they hear revenue opportunity. That translation is everything.
so that means intense focus, brevity.
Precisely. You need a standardized executive summary template, 1 page, maximum 200 words. That constraint is critical because they'll only absorb 3 to 5 key facts. It has to use financial language and focus only on the high-level impact.
And for actual presentations, we can't just dump pages of charts on them.
No, we recommend a standard 4-slide framework for those high-level meetings. Slide 1, what are our goals? Slide 2, what's the KPI snapshot? Slide 3, what were the key content drivers of that performance? And slide 4, what's the action or the ask? It's structured, it respects their time, and it delivers a clear recommendation. And finally, you have to practice storytelling with data. Use that narrative structure. What happened? So what does that mean for the business? And now what are we going to do about it? That transforms raw metrics into something persuasive.
So what does this all mean? We outlined a journey that takes content measurement from this jumbled pile of ignored metrics to a strategic, revenue-focused framework. It relies on a consistent foundation, disciplined data collection, tested attribution models, tailored dashboards, and finally, executive-level storytelling.
And if you implement all 5 of those steps, you will start fighting for budget and you'll start investing strategically. But the success of this entire framework, it really hinges on one foundational piece of alignment. And that's the final thought we want to leave you with. Your ability to do any of this hinges entirely on knowing the precise difference between a content-qualified lead and a sales-qualified lead. So ask yourself, how precisely does your organization define that moment where content's influence ends and sales readiness, that critical handoff to the sales team actually begins? That clear, agreed-upon handoff point is the ultimate measure of a mature, revenue-generating content operation.